Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this first of a series of webinars, how to access a £3,000 grant for new employees. My name is Joe Keegan from the Growth Platform. I'm just going to talk you through a number of different slides, and I've got a number of speakers this morning as well. You're very welcome to this first webinar. We've got three speakers, myself, as I mentioned, a lady called Sue Ennis and Siobhan Grosskirth, both of my colleagues within the Skills and Apprenticeship team in the Growth Platform. And as I say, this is the first of a series of short 30-minute webinars that we plan to hold with employers, really to provide you with lots of updates and information about recruitment and workforce development. If you do want to ask any questions, please type them into the chat function and we'll do our best to answer those questions as we go along. If we don't get time to answer those questions, then we will send out those answers to the questions after this session, along with a copy of this presentation. Okay, so the Skills and Apprenticeship Brokerage Service, who are we and what can we do to support you? We are a team of skills brokers working across the Liverpool City Region, and we provide impartial advice, guidance and support all around workforce development and recruitment. We can support you to recruit and retain your staff through ongoing skills development, and we can identify funding streams and grants available for you to be able to maximise your funding towards training costs. We can also identify training providers who can deliver against your training needs, and we obviously have good relationships with a number of training providers across the Liverpool City Region in those 6 local authorities that we cover. Okay, in terms of recruitment, you may already have some current vacancies and you may be thinking of recruiting as well. But there will be some common issues around recruitment that you may all be aware of. One is clearly time. So writing job adverts takes time, sifting through applications and interviewing candidates all takes time. There's clearly a cost, and we work with lots of employers who talk about the amount of money they spend monthly to advertise vacancies, maybe through recruitment agencies or consultants, or specifically through particular newspapers or periodicals or monthly newsletters, things like that. It's also about reaching the right audience. So it's about where you advertise to make sure you can maximise on picking up the most applicants for that particular post. And all of those are issues clearly when you're looking through the process of recruiting staff. So how can we help with that? Well, the first question we ask is, have you thought of apprenticeships as a way of recruiting new employees? Now, apprenticeships have been around for a while. There have been some significant changes to apprenticeships over the past few years. You may have had apprentices in the past, and you may have been aware of how funding works in the past, and it may be different now to when you actually took on an apprentice. So we can talk you through that whole process of maybe recruiting an apprentice to an existing job role, and an existing vacancy, I should say. So maybe it wouldn't be a normal vacancy, maybe you'd turn that into an apprenticeship vacancy. And we can match your vacancy requirements to the right apprenticeship standard. That's the training that will take place to make sure that the apprentice has the right skills, knowledge and behaviours. We can source a training provider for you who can deliver training that is fit for purpose, essentially, so fits with your needs. And they need to be flexible and supportive of your business demands. Clearly, you're there running a business, and the training providers need to make sure that that they can be as flexible as possible to make sure you can still run the business. It doesn't impact on that business when they're delivering the training to apprentices. We can advertise your vacancy free of charge, and my colleague Sue is going to talk through the process of doing that a bit later on. And training providers will also support you with advertising, interviewing, sifting and making a decision as to who you're going to take on as a recruit. We can support you with access to government grants and funding, and my colleague Siobhan will talk about that a little bit later on. Excuse me. And that's quite a complicated process in some cases. So we're working with employees all the time to talk them through how they would access funding and how they would access grants, both from government and locally as well, within the local authority areas. For apprentices, there's also the opportunity through the combined authority to receive half-price bus and rail travel for those apprentices who are 19 to 24. That's a real incentive. And also as an employer, There's a benefit on national insurance for apprentices under 25. I'm going to hand over now to my colleague Sue, and she's going to talk you through apprenticeships.
Hi, good morning. Thank you again for joining us this morning, and thank you, Joe, for touching on those things. Basically, I just want to run through a couple of points about apprenticeships before I move on to where we're going to use it as a recruitment solution. For those who maybe have never employed apprenticeships or just aren't aware about what they are. So basically, an apprenticeship is a job. It's a real job. It can be part-time or full-time. And the difference is it combines paid, thank you, Joe. It combines paid employment with practical training and study. So that's the main difference between the traditional route. They're open to all apprenticeships. Anybody can access an apprenticeship age 16 and above. There is no upper age limit. And this is where a lot of employers don't understand that it doesn't have to be school leavers, 16 to 18. There is no upper age limit. Anybody can access an apprenticeship. So that means an apprenticeship can also be a great tool for your workforce development, because your existing staff can access apprenticeships for their personal development and to access qualifications. And apprenticeships come all different levels, right from level 2, which is equivalent to GCSE level, right up to a level 7, which is equivalent to or can actually have embedded in it a master's degree. Now, there's also up to 100% government funding for apprenticeships, and my colleague Siobhan will explain a little bit more around the costs and the funding in a couple of slides' time. And it's great for succession planning and growing your own talent, which is so important at the moment. When we're moving into a recovery period, we really do need to grow and retain our own talent. So yeah, if you can move on to the next slide, Joe, please. What I'm going to do then is just explain a little bit more about what we mean when we say we want to use apprenticeships as a recruitment, a talent management solution. Because with an apprenticeship, you can attract, onboard, develop, motivate and retain your employees exactly the same as you can through the traditional route. If you could just stop sharing, Joe, I just want to go on to the Be More website just to talk you through a little bit more. Pardon me, when I just share my screen. Just to explain a little bit more about the recruitment and what we mean by using an apprenticeship as talent management. So this is the Be More apprenticeship website. And this is a bespoke, unique website and unique service just for Liverpool City Region that you can use for your recruitment. The service is completely free. And I'll just show you a little bit. This is the home screen, and all these details will be sent out with the slides. There's a help page where you can access lots of different information, how to access the apprenticeship support team, our team, the skills brokerage team, opportunities and events that are going on in the city region for you to join as an employer. The different types of apprenticeships, the A to Z of apprenticeships, there's over 500 different types of apprenticeships for you to access. And how to advertise your vacancy, your job vacancy, apprenticeship job vacancy on this website. So if I just go to that, just to show you, if a candidate is on this website, and don't forget, this is Liverpool City Region website. However, it is duplicated nationally on the National Apprenticeship Service website as well. So anything that appears on here will appear on the National Apprenticeship Service website if you want it to. So as a candidate, if you're on this website, you can either look through keywords, as you could do for any normal job search website, put in a keyword, put your postcode in, how far the candidate thinks they can travel to access that apprenticeship. And then this is just what, if we just click on any of these job apprenticeships so that you can see how they're set out. And this is how your job will be set out, your vacancy for the apprenticeship will be set out. So up here, we know what the job is, what the apprenticeship is. There's you as the employer, this one's Mitchells and Butler. So that's nice to see that we have some hospitality actually recruiting for the opening up. What we can see here is a map So really easy for the candidate to see exactly where the job is. So is it accessible for them? And as Joe mentioned before, there's half price rail and bus travel for the apprentice under 25. So that's a really good incentive as well for your recruitment. Little bit about you as the employer. And then if they want to apply straight away, if they're happy to do that, they can click that. Otherwise, what we've got here is information that we will help and work with you if you need to, how to get to these points here. So weekly wage, a really good incentive for taking an apprentice on over the traditional job route. Weekly wage, you can pay £4.30 as a minimum wage for an apprentice for the first year. If they're still on the apprenticeship after the first year and they're over the age of 19, it has to go to the minimum wage for their age. And you can pay the apprentice whatever you like. And as you can see here, there's a range, and that will be due to whatever sort of experience or qualifications they may already have, that candidate. So you could advertise it like that, or you can just advertise what you will be paying them per week. How many hours per week that candidate can expect to work. Expected duration, and what we mean by that is how long we think it will take the apprentice to complete the apprenticeship. They can stay with you for absolutely as long as they want to and as long as you want them, but that just means how long before they've completed the apprenticeship and when you would like them to start with your company there. Then a summary of you as a company and your job. And again, this is where we can support you. We can help you with that information to include on this job vacancy so that you attract the right candidates. We can support you with this. The training provider can support you with this, and the Be More team as well, the apprenticeship support team. So a little bit of information about what the job is, what they expect, what the employer expects, and the benefits working for you. Then importantly, requirements and prospects. What skills do you want that candidate to have to join your company? Will they need any particular qualifications? As this one, you can see no particular qualifications required. Personal qualities. What personal qualities do you want that employer to have, the candidate to have, sorry. So as you can see, all that information can be built in just as a traditional job vacancy would have. And future prospects, what are the candidates' future prospects if they come to work for you? And we can encourage you to put as much information and help you with all that. Then again, more information about you as the employer, what you're all about. Your website can be embedded there so they can have a little bit more of a look around and find out what you're all about there. And then importantly, the training provider. This is where we say the main difference is between this and a traditional job role, is that you will be supported by a training provider, whether that's a private training provider or an FE college or whatever, to deliver the qualification part of that training. And there's usually a contact there as well. So the candidate can contact the training provider to find out a little bit more before they apply. All this is leading into you getting the right candidates applying. And then at the bottom, the application instructions. So just click here to apply, what the closing date is. Now, importantly, you can specify whether you want those candidates to come directly through to your website, whether you want them to go through to the training provider's website, where they can help you with sifting and interviewing perhaps. Or as I say, it can go on across all our social media platforms, all our websites. You can do the same across yours as an employer, your websites and your social media platforms. So as you can see, the support is really there. What we do have as well, importantly, across the city region and across the Northwest is an ambassador network, so employer ambassadors. And these are either small employers or they can be global organisations based in the city region who already recruit and employ apprentices. And they are there as ambassadors to support you with any issues or queries you may have as well on recruitment, on onboarding, on the different types of apprenticeships. So there's so much support there. And the important thing is all this is completely free. You don't pay for any of this recruitment service. Okay, so thank you very much, Joe. I'll stop sharing now and pass you back to Joe, and then Joe can introduce our colleague Siobhan, who'll talk a little bit more about funding with you.
Thanks, Sue. It was really, really good. I'm going to pass you over now to Siobhan. And Siobhan is a skills broker working across the Liverpool City region, as Sue is. And the crux of this particular session is around how you can access funding to support your recruitment process. Clearly, we're talking about apprenticeships here. So I'll move on to the next slide, and Siobhan can talk you through, if it will allow me to move on. There's always a technical hitch. Let me do that again. Okay. Here we go. Just took a little bit of time. Monday morning and the computer doesn't want to work sometimes. I'm going to hand you over to Siobhan, and Siobhan's going to talk you through apprenticeship funding and give you a real life example of recruitment of an apprentice. Siobhan.
Thanks, Joe. Morning, everybody. So as Joe said, I'm just going to give you a little bit of a background on funding of apprenticeships now. So as you can see from the slide, there is up to 100% funding available for apprenticeships. These are for employers that have got less than 50 staff in place, and your apprentices do need to be 16 to 18 or age 19 to 24 and have an education and healthcare plan in place. Okay, if that's not the case for you, then you'll pay a 5% co-investment. So obviously heavily funded, these apprenticeships, 95% funding. What's great is also available now government incentive grants. So for any new apprenticeship recruits, you will get £3,000 regardless of how old that apprentice is. Okay, there is also additional £1,000 on top if your apprentice is 16 to 18 or again 19 to 24 with an EHCP. £4,000, significant amount of funding there for that apprenticeship. What we do as well as a skills brokerage service is we offer a levy transfer service. So this is where we work with employers to transfer their unused levy payments over to other employers. We facilitate all of that. We do all the negotiations. And what that basically means is that 100% of the training costs for that apprenticeship would be paid for you by another employer. Okay. There are other local incentives. One of them is Knowsley Apprentice. Great incentive, £4,500 grant. There are some stipulations around Knowsley Apprentice though. They obviously need to be a Knowsley resident. They need to be aged 16 to 24, and you do need to pay them a minimum wage for age, not the apprenticeship wage. Okay, so can I have my next slide, Joe?
It's trying, Siobhan. It's just for some reason it's sticking. There we go. That's the one.
Okay, so this is a costed example for an apprenticeship that's recruited via Knowsley Apprentice, just to give you a working example and see how it works. Okay, so for instance, if we're working with somebody who wants to recruit a hairdressing apprentice, if this vacancy is advertised and recruited through Knowsley Apprentice and they recruit a 16-year-old, yeah, that 16-year-old will be paid £4.62 for a 35-hour week if they're working 35 hours, which is the equivalent of about £161.70. Okay, and you can see the annual there will be just under £8,500. The grants broken down, they do amount to £8,500, which means that technically you're receiving more in grant funding than you will be paying out in salary for that apprentice. Okay. Is that moving on, Joe? Is it struggling again?
Just seems to take a second to move over. There we go.
Okay, brilliant, thank you. We do also have other funding available for employers in Liverpool City Region. So aside from apprenticeships, we do have a pot of ESF funding called Be More. Now this is funding to support your workforce development needs. So all training costs where no other funding stream is available. Okay, the only thing we can't fund are your statutory and mandatory elements, but any form of upskilling for your workforce, we can fund up to 70% of the cost of training. And obviously, like Joe said, we are a team of skills brokers that work with you to identify the appropriate funding streams. You know, we'll signpost you to the relevant training providers, even find the right training to fit your requirements. And I'll show you an example now of supporting and mentoring an apprentice in the workplace, which can be funded via BMOR, and it would cost as little as £27 per person to do this course.
Let's give it a second.
Like winding it up, aren't we?
Don't know why it's doing this, but there we go.
Okay, so this is a training course that's being put together by 3-dimensional training. It is all around supporting your apprentice and ensuring that you are business ready for that apprentice coming in. They will go through everything from your digital apprenticeship service, which is how you draw your funding down for that apprentice, compliance, so apprenticeship agreements, commitment statements. Important is delivery off the job and on the job training and how that split will take place. And then all the paperwork and obviously an awful lot more will be contained within that day's training. But that's available to you for £27 per person, starting from £27. And obviously, if you're interested in that, then we can give you more advice and support around that. Okay, I think it's back to you, Joe.
Thanks, Siobhan.
No worries.
Yeah, that was great. And it's just sticking a little bit, folks. Sorry about this. The technology on all of these things sometimes doesn't always work as smoothly as you'd like them to. Let's just see if it will move on.
Just while we're waiting for that, Siobhan, could I just ask you, there's a question gone in there, if both the employer and the apprentice has to live in Knowsley for the Knowsley Apprenticeship Fund?
No, the employer doesn't need to be in Knowsley. It's for Knowsley residents. So the employer can be anywhere, but it would just be advertised for Knowsley residents. So obviously, if you are on the peripheral of Knowsley, then yeah, that's absolutely fine. And with the travel incentives that we've got, it does mean that, you know, they can travel to different parts of the region. So that's absolutely fine.
Great.
Thanks for that. We probably underplayed the title of this presentation a little bit. You know, as Siobhan's just highlighted there is potential for employers to access £8,500 if it, you know, the criteria fit, both for Knowsley Apprentice and obviously the age of the apprentice as well. So it is always worth talking through with us what your recruitment options are, what you're looking to do, and we can guide you to the best route to pick up funding and to pick up local grants. The way of doing that and the way you would access the support that we offer is to register with us through the Growth Platform. And you can see the link there to the Growth Platform website and the Skills Brokerage page. So it literally takes, you know, 20 or 30 seconds to complete that registration. That would then come through to us. I manage the team of skills brokers, and we would then allocate a skills broker to you to really work with you to pick up on your training and skills needs. And it's not just apprenticeship, as Siobhan said, there could be other skills needs that you have. If you prefer to speak to someone before you register, then my email address is on there. Happy to have a chat with anybody who just wants a bit more information, but is not prepared or is not ready yet to register with us and pick up on the support. We'll see if this moves on. There we go. So we've got a bit of time left, folks, for Q&A, and we're just going to have a look at some of the questions that have come through. But if you do have any questions, please feel free to pop them into the chat function, the Q&A function, and we'll do our best to answer those now. If we run out of time, then obviously we will supply the answers to those questions when we send out this presentation to everybody when the session's finished. So let's have a look at the Q&A.
I can go back to one, Joe, there that asked if the hours for the what hours it has to be for a part-time apprenticeship. I did pop into the answers there that really that will be the training provider who will discuss that, because different apprenticeships will need a minimum amount of hours for that apprentice to work. So that would be a conversation really with a training provider before you took the apprentice on. Is that right? Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely. That's great.
We've answered the Knowsley apprenticeship one, haven't we? And Siobhan's answered the one about accessing the apprenticeship funding. That would be through the digital account again, which we can help and support with when it comes to that. And the travel incentives, do they cover to Halton? As far as I understand it, Joe, it doesn't, unless that's changed.
I think it covers part of Halton Sue, not all of it.
Okay, something we'd have to look at then.
Yeah, we can get more details on that.
Yeah, we would. I'm just going to pick up on one of the questions here. Can you access the government incentive grant if you get an apprentice via Kickstart? Kickstart isn't an apprenticeship. Kickstart is a totally different scheme. It doesn't apply. The government incentive grant for apprenticeships doesn't apply to the Kickstart scheme. There's a totally different set of funding that applies to that, and some incentives or payments that are made to the employer to cover what we call wraparound support, things like training, uniform, laptop, for example, lots of those types of things. Okay.
And can an existing employee be placed on an apprenticeship? And absolutely, that's where we talk about talent management within your organisation, is that this can be used for development of your employees. They can access an apprenticeship. Doesn't have to change the salary that they're on or the hours that they work or anything. But yes, absolutely, employees can be placed on an apprenticeship to get those additional qualifications and skills.
Okay. And we've got an anonymous attendee has asked the question, the 70% grant towards training costs, is this just for the specific apprentices you employ, or can it be used for the rest of your workforce? When Siobhan talked about the up to 70% available for employers for training costs, it was non-apprenticeship training. So we're working with about 600 employees at the moment on that particular scheme. It is a Combined Authority Growth Platform funded program project. So if you have any other non-apprenticeship training needs, then there's potential for you to access up to 70% towards the cost of that training. And there's a whole range of different types of training that can be delivered under that particular project. It is called the Be More project, in much the same way as Sue talked you through the Be More portal. It's all called Be More. But the next step for that is again to register with us, and we'll talk you through how you can access that pot of money. Okay. We've got another question in relation to Kickstart. We have a number of Kickstart employees starting soon. After this finishes, can we transfer to an apprenticeship? Well, absolutely you can. And really that's something that lots of employees are looking at. Whether the incentive payments, the £3,000 we talked about earlier, will still be in place at that point, we don't know, because we don't know when your Kickstart is going to end. But clearly we would hope that there'll still be an incentive payment for apprenticeships. If there is, then you can look at that. We look at that at that stage. But yeah, there is an anticipation through Kickstart that employers will look to continue employment with those Kickstart staff. And the next step really is to make sure that they do have the skills for that particular role, moving on from Kickstart, and then an apprenticeship is ideal for that. So yeah, certainly you can move a Kickstarter onto an apprenticeship. I think we've got time for maybe one or two more. I think we've answered most of them.
There was just a question about the length of the apprenticeships, which I should have popped into my slides there earlier on, that there is a minimum length, which is 12 months. And that's just to ensure the quality of the apprenticeship. So they can be from, as Siobhan's put in, they can be from 12 months right up to 36 months or longer if it's a degree apprenticeship. But they have to be at least 12 months minimum. So they have to have a contract with the employee for at least 12 months.
Yeah. I think there's a question, if we employ school leavers straight from Knowsley schools, are we entitled to the full £8,500 grant? Siobhan, do you want to pick that one up? You have to unmute yourself. Okay.
Sorry, Joe, I was having real trouble there. What was it? Sorry, the question again.
So if we employ school leavers straight from Knowsley schools, are we entitled to the full £8,500 grant?
Yeah, absolutely. So if the apprentice is aged 16 to 24, you will get the full £8,500. Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously that's a mix of the Knowsley Apprentice Grant and the incentive payments as well.
Yeah, it's all of that was broken down on the slides, amounting to £8,500.
Fantastic. Okay. I think that's it from us, folks. We wanted to keep to time as best we could, and we've given you a lot of information there, but clearly, you know, you may need clarification on some of that or all of it. So please feel free to come back to us. Register on the Growth Platform website at that link I just showed you on the previous slide. We will send this presentation out to everybody who's attended today, and we will send the answers to all those questions that are being asked as well. This is a series of events that we're planning to hold, and it is literally, as I said at the start, to update you and provide you with up-to-date information on skills, apprenticeships, recruitment. Okay. So we're here to help you and support you right through the process of taking on an apprentice or picking up any of your particular skills or training needs. So I'm going to close the session today. Thanks to Sue, thanks to Siobhan, and thanks to Shelley on the Growth Platform, who's been running this for us, which has been great. And we'll see you hopefully on the next session, which will be in a couple of, I think it's about 3 or 4 weeks time. So we'll send out notification of that and all around what it is as well, so you can pick up on that. And thanks again for attending. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.